thank WatchGuard for assisting in this. Alex is our speaker today, and he's the Director of Authentication at WatchGuard. And he's been in security for basically 2.5 decades. And he has actually started up an organization that was purchased by WatchGuard in 2017. So when we talk about experts in the field, Alex is truly an expert in the world of two-factor authentication. Let him talk about the risks that are going on in the world today and a solution that they have that might be worth considering. So, Alex?
All right, thank you very much, Jeff, for the kind words. And thanks for the invitation. Always happy to join. And again, security and MFA is my passion. This is what I like to do. And I really like your question. I mean, it's an interesting question because when you start putting down your password, some people would say most of the times when I ask this question for an audience, I usually get something around 30, 40, even 50. When people start writing down, and if you remember the places where you made purchases online, maybe once in your life, and maybe you had to create an account, so it counts as well. So it's a very interesting one. I'm curious to know how many passwords you have. Okay, so for joining this session. So I'm Alex Caioni, Director of Authentication, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the danger of the dark web. So just explaining a little bit for those who are not familiar with the term. I guess most of you heard about it. It's a lot of people talk about it. Just a quick overview, what's the dark web and what do they do in the dark web? I'm not going to connect to the dark web right now. Okay, no worries. But a little bit about how the credentials get into the dark web and how people are using that. Okay, I'm gonna just show, for example, for a few domains, how many credentials are in the dark web. So just for you to have an idea. And then the remote work threats, what's going on now that everyone is working remotely. We know that this is not gonna change that much. Of course, hopefully we can find a vaccine and everything so we can start traveling and going to the office. But I think that even after that, people would start working from home part of the time as well. So this is not going away too soon. And the solutions to protect your business, I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the things that you can do. And one of those solutions is multi-factor authentication. I'm going to show off point it works. So it's going to be also a little bit of a demo so you can experience the use of MFA and how it can protect you against credential theft. Okay, and again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the comments and we'll get to the questions at any time. Okay, so let's take a look at the dark web and how it's changing the security requirements. So first of all, what is the surface web before we go to the dark web? The surface web, it's what we do every day. So you Google something, a shop or product, and then you get the results, you click, and you go to the website. So this is the surface web, is what everyone has access to. Now, the deep web, it's pages that are usually not searchable. So for example, when someone gives you a page, which is an IP address, it's not a URL or something that's protected behind an authentication. So really websites that are not intended to be published or become public. This is the deep web. Now the dark web, we're getting deeper on that. So the dark web is not just like, you won't be able to use the dark web or access the dark web using your common browser. If you want to go to the dark web, you're going to have to use a specific browser, Tor, is called the Onion router. And you have to use some tools in order to be able to get to the dark web. So it's not something anyone has access to, but anyone can have access to. You just have to do some research, and in a few hours, if you want to adventure yourself, you can do that. You can go and navigate in the dark web. You're going to see all kinds of things. You're going to experiment all kinds of things. So It's not something that I would say is dangerous. It could be if you keep clicking on things, because it's not controlled. It's not really controlled by any government. So you're going to find all kinds of things there. So you have to be careful in case you're doing that. But basically, the dark web is the place that people use for all kinds of things, to sell drugs, to sell guns, or to sell passwords and credentials. So usually they negotiate in the dark web, and they use e-currency like bitcoins to sell things, to sell viruses, ransomware, or credentials or credit card information. So this is the dark web, and the threat of a underground malicious marketplace is that the hackers are always trying to steal information and try to steal things from users. So if I'm a hacker, I want to, for example, try to attack a website. What I can do, I can go to the dark web and try to find the database of leaked credentials from this website, or sometimes there are some databases for sale there in the dark web. So, for example, this is just a few examples. You can find those databases, you can buy those databases in the dark web. So it's a place that you can people or hackers can make money. And if you study a little bit more, you're going to see that there's some people that are just in the business of selling things, like selling credit cards numbers, selling social security numbers, selling credentials, and there are people that are in the business of using those to conduct the attacks. So it's all kind of people that you will find in the dark web. So the credentials are leaking in the dark web, and not only the credentials, but everything has a price. You can buy almost anything in the dark web. So you can buy passports, driver's license. You can get the social security number and try to use to get credit somewhere, and or get maybe a credit card, a new credit card in the name of other persons. So you can find everything. Now the thing is that credentials go to the dark web. Okay, so can you prevent that? Really prevent your credentials? Or a lot of people ask me, is it my fault that my credential is in the dark web? And I would answer that most of the time, no, it's not your fault. And if you ask me if you can prevent, no, you can't prevent as well. And the reason for that is that most of those databases they are there because they were the result of an attack within different websites. So there was a LinkedIn, for example, breach. I think it was in 2012. So my credentials were there, so I was part of that breach. And it's not because of me that my credential was stolen. It was because of LinkedIn. So the fact that I had an account with LinkedIn and LinkedIn was hacked and they were able to download a database of users and passwords, this is not my fault. So the only thing I have to do is try to use different passwords. Like Jeff, for example, he's using a password manager, and with that, he's able to use different passwords for different things. He might have a Netflix account that he shares with with families. We do this all the time, but for the most important thing, at least we try to use unique passwords. Okay, and one important thing is that sometimes we do those searches. So so Jeff will provide you a report on breaches on your domain if you're interested on, and then you're gonna see how many breaches your company was involved on, or the users from your company were involved on. So maybe you're going to find 10, 20, 200 users were part of previous breaches. But this doesn't mean that you're not going to be part of a future breach. You don't know. It's not because, okay, I already know I can change my password, now I'm good. No, this is something that you have to constantly monitor. You have to really check from time to time if you were part of a breach. And so this is not going away. This will continue happening, and people will be part of breaches. If we're not part of a breach today, maybe tomorrow. So you have to really be monitoring. And the big problem for companies is that if you were part of a breach, maybe it was a Facebook account and it was your personal account. It wasn't your business account. But maybe this password that you use for Facebook is the same that the user or the employee is using to log into the network. And this is what the hackers are counting in, because they want to, not all the time they're going to find the credentials from the company that you work for. Most of the time, they're going to try to use credentials that were stolen, that were exposed, that were leaked in the past, and see if the users are using the same one. And we have a case involving that. One case that's quite recent, it was with Zoom. So this case, it was just a few months ago. Of course, a lot of people are using Zoom. Zoom usage grew really fast with the pandemic. And what happened? There was a database at some point in time. There was a database in the dark web being sold with about 500,000 Zoom passwords. And the interesting thing about that is that it wasn't the case that Zoom was hacked. Zoom wasn't hacked. They didn't get the Zoom database of users. What they really did, they got database of users and they tried using credential stuffing, basically trying to use a known password to see if it works. So they tried to use the passwords that were in the dark web for different services. And guess what? 500,000 accounts were using the same password from a previously leaked password. And this is how they were able to get to this number. So it was a good work from the hackers. They were able to provide those 500,000 Zoom passwords without having to hack Zoom. Okay, and this is the big problem. 5 is the average number of passwords that users will try to use on most accounts. Now, let's think about 50 accounts or 100 accounts. Like Jeff said, I cannot remember. I cannot remember what I ate last night. So how I'm going to remember the passwords of so many services and so many websites? It's impossible. So you can do either a couple of things. Either you use a password manager to manage your passwords, or you try to repeat your password and maybe do some changes at the end. Maybe you're going to change a number. Maybe you're going to do a small change. Maybe use a caps in one of the letters. But people will tend to use the same passwords all the time. So this is the average number of passwords they're going to use. Okay, it might change. So it might change a little bit because some of the services, they ask you to change after some time and they don't allow you to use the previous one. So people will try to use the same one, just changing a few numbers, or they're going to create another one. But then this other one that they create, they're going to start using for other services as well, so they don't forget. So that's the important thing. Now, thinking about remote work threats, and before I do that, I just wanted to take a moment here, just for a quick example about the dark web scan. So we have here just a quick example I want to show. Let me just see in here, where's my browser. I just wanted to show what does a dark web scan look like. So I'm gonna do the following. So I'm gonna search for WatchGuard.com, and it's gonna show the results. So it's showing that users or accounts from WatchGuard appeared in 12 data breaches that included credentials. We're talking here, this is something that we provide for free, but it's just for credentials related breaches. So 12 data breaches included the domain, 258 accounts were exposed. It could be accounts that exist today, it could be old accounts, but the fact is that those are the number of accounts, and the latest one was from 2019, MGM Resorts. So it was a breach involving MGM Resorts. Probably some of our employees went to a MGM resort. They put in their business email. They were traveling maybe for business, and MGM was hacked and got the credentials. Okay, we can get more information here, but we're not gonna get in this case the name or the account of the users because of privacy. Only someone that owns the domain can have the full list. But this is just to show an example of breaches that involves credentials. And when I said that, for example, new breaches can happen all the time. Let's take another company, Sony.com, for example, that has a lot of users. 21 data breaches, 2,500 accounts were exposed. But one important thing about that is that the most recent one is April 2020. So let's say I do a search. I did a search in March. In April, there was another database of credentials down in the dark web involving users from Sony. And it's really possible that those passwords were the same that they're using, for example, for the network. And this is what they're going to try to do, the hackers will try to do.
Alex, quick question.
Yep.
If you would, one of our guests would like kind of how would you define a breach? What does that mean? And not necessarily how they do it, but.
So the ones in the dark web that we find are breaches that eventually became public. A lot of times what happens is that the date of the breach and the breach, for example, for this company, hackers were able to use some sort of exposure in their website, or they were able to get into the website and get a dump of passwords. Usually those breaches involves an attack. There are different ways. Home Depot, for example, which was a very famous one, they used a credential and connected through a VPN. So it was just a VPN access. They got one credential, got inside Home Depot website or network, and were able to get credit card information, password information from users. So in this case in here, most of the case you're going to see there's some information about the hack. You're not going to find too many details. Maybe if you Google, you're going to find some details, but you can see a little bit about what happened. So included email addresses, IP addresses, and they disclosed they were part of the breach. So some countries like US, companies are required to disclose. Some other countries, they won't disclose, but you're going to find those databases in the web. Sometimes it's being sold. After some time, it's made available, publicly available in the dark web. In this case, it was the breach happened on April 13th, but it was made public only 5 days later. So for 5 days, people had access to this database and could try to use this database, for example, to hack Sony. Okay, this is something that could happen. And another important thing is that even though your credentials were there, it doesn't really mean that your password was exposed. So one important thing is that if Jeff, for example, Jeff was part of this breach, and you're using a password manager, you're using a very complex password, and they are storing those passwords, at least hashed. It's going to be really hard for them to use a tool to unhash and get those passwords. In this case, they used unsalted SHA-1 hash password. What does it really mean? It means that passwords up to 8 characters can be broken, can be cracked. It doesn't matter how complex. Today, with the computation power we have, we can do that. So they didn't do their homework. If you're storing passwords, you have to at least salt the hashed password, which means that you use another component when you're hashing those passwords. So there's a good chance a lot of passwords here. In fact, it's not 8 characters. I think it's 12 characters. If you have unsalted up to 12 characters, I think they can be cracked. 8 if you had if you used salted hashed passwords. Okay. So this is just an example how you can know if you were part of a breach. And again, these services, like other services, they just get information that's public. Anyone can have access to that. What companies like us, what we do, we get those databases and we try to help and make people aware that they were part of the breach. So they need to change that password as soon as possible. And talking a little bit about remote work threats now, securing I put now remote users. I'm just saying that, again, we started with remote users with the pandemic. This became like the normal. and more, I think people will work from home. Amazon, for example, in Seattle, they transformed some of those spaces they have, like for people, they transformed in more like places where anyone can sit. So you can go there, sit and use, and then go back home. You don't have to have your own desk. And some people have now the option to work from home even after the pandemic and go to the office whenever they need and occupy space. So more and more, I think this is going to happen. So people will start working from home. Okay, and with that, there was a spike in phishing attacks. Microsoft itself reported 70,000 COVID team attacks daily in the US alone. That's a lot, and a lot of people will fall for that. Like you put something about, hey, there's a new vaccine, or there's a new way to get infected, or this is a big hoax. So and people will click on that. If they send to 1 million people and just 1% clicks, it's a lot of folks that are gonna be phished. And conference and collaboration applications. So Zoom exploded, like I mentioned, from 10 million to 200 million concurrent users. That's a huge increase. And in fact, we have integration guides with our product, with our AuthPoint MFA product, and Zoom is the third product that people view mostly for integration with MFA. So from cloud applications, Zoom is the third one that people are looking for to know how to integrate with our MFA solution. And increase in VPN usage. If you look at the first February, March, everyone was sending people home, and they had to help people work from home. So they had to set up VPN. So they increased the number of users. So change the firewalls, start adding MFA to users. We had a huge spike on MFA usage with AuthPoint in terms of sales and usage as well, because people are working from home. So this is normal now. People will use more and more cloud applications, collaboration tools, and VPN. And this is the new common, and you're going to see also more and more phishing attacks and people talking about those phishing attacks over the internet. And every time you're going to see something new. This is what happens all the time. And there are security risks involving remote working, because now, first of all, it was something that happened really suddenly. All of a sudden, people say, hey, everyone is getting sick, it's dangerous, we don't know how to cure, just work from home. Now, okay, I have a PC, I don't have a laptop. Now you have to buy a laptop. For example, in Japan, we were talking to some universities. We have a huge university that is our customer that uses AuthPoint. The other universities, they were going to implement some solutions, and then they said, well, we're now spending all of our budgets just to buy laptops for our employees, because now they need to work from home. So it was a big change. It really happened suddenly, and there was no plan. All of a sudden, companies will have to plan, okay, my employees will be at home. What do I need to provide them? I need to provide them with a laptop, with a monitor, with a mouse. What else do I have? A VPN access, because maybe a lot of those folks were working in the office like 9 to 5. So what do I have to do? And at home, we don't have the same security as the companies. I don't have the money to buy firewalls and implement firewalls, and I'm a security guy. I can do that, but think about all of the other people which are not security guys. They're not going to implement a super complex password at home. My wife will also complain, like we were discussing in the beginning. But come on, I cannot type this password. So you're not going to have the same security that you're going to have in the company, and you have to start dealing with that. This is why now a lot of people are talking about zero trust network and the fact that you have to really take good care about how the computer is being used, and how do you authenticate in those cases. So what can we do about that? So multi-factor authentication is the first thing that people are talking about. So, and this is pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, they were already talking about that. Verizon 2019 data breach investigations report said that there are so many things that are happening, so many attacks in different areas, in VPNs, in cloud applications, email, that they said, okay, just 2FA everything. And you can get this from their report. It was one of their conclusions. It's really hard for you to choose which one you should protect. Just start implementing and 2FA everything. And this report from Gartner that came out after the pandemic, it's also interesting when they talk about remote access security. They say that through 2021, enterprises with remote access without implementing MFA will experience 5 times as many accounts takeover incidents as those that use MFA. So companies that have remote access without MFA will really start experiencing issues. Is there a question? Okay, so what are the solutions? How can we help protect the business? So there are a few things that we can do. Phishing and account takeover defense, some of the things you can do is multi-factor authentication, of course. This is one of the most important things, and you can implement really fast with our solutions. Phishing awareness training, I think Jeff was talking about that in the beginning. DNS firewalling and advanced malware protection. Remember that the computers are now at home, so you have to be prepared to install endpoint protection. And this is one of the reasons that we have now Panda and AD360 as part of our portfolio. Now, talking about MFA and how we do that, how we protect the users. So AuthPoint is a product that I carry. It's my product here in WatchGuard. And AuthPoint is a cloud managed solution, which means that you don't have to go back to the office to install a server, to install software there, everything through the cloud. So it's a cloud-based solution. It was the first WatchGuard cloud application that protects identities when they're trying to access cloud applications like Salesforce, Office 365, G Suite, Amazon Web Services, or when they are logging into their computers, could be Windows, could be Mac, could be Linux. When they're trying to access remote access to servers or remote access to the network, VPNs. So we take care of all of that using multiple authentication options. The most common one is the mobile phone. So the mobile phone it's something you just download an app, activate, and you're good to go. Or you can also use a hardware token if that's something that you would like to do as well. And we have some risk-based features, and we're adding more and more risk-based features every quarter. You're going to see a new one being deployed. And it's also easy for the user, even for the regular user. You have a user-friendly mobile app, you activate a token, and once you do that, you can authenticate using push-based authentication. Push-based authentication is good because it's secure authentication with one-touch approval. You don't have to type in anything, you don't have to do anything. You just look at that and approve. You can see who's trying to authenticate, make sure that's you, what time this authentication is happening, where is it coming from? If I receive a push message saying, oh, this is coming from China, from Russia, then it's probably not me. And maybe if I'm not requesting now to authenticate someplace, probably it's not me. So it's important to see where is this, which resource, what are you trying to access? Your IDP portal, your web single sign-on portal, you're trying to access the VPN. And then you can make the decision if you want to approve, if that's you, or block if that's not you. So it's a mobile app. There's nothing extra to carry. It supports multiple tokens. It doesn't cost anything for you. You can have as many as you want. You can put PIN and biometric. I'm going to show here in just a few moments. I'm going to show my token. I'm going to share here my screen and my token. But it's something that you can use to protect your users right now. They download, they activate, and start using right now. And MFA can really protect and block the attacks. This is just an example how someone with a dark web stolen credential could potentially try to get to the network. And this is what they're trying to do. They're getting the databases, they're trying to access your network and then access your assets. So what they're gonna do, they're gonna look for a stolen credential. They're gonna go in the dark web. Maybe it's not the credential that I use for the network. Maybe it's the one that I use on my Facebook or LinkedIn account. But you know what? I don't have a password manager. So I'm going to use the same password everywhere. So this is my password, is the same one I use to access the network. So they're going to try to connect. They're going to make a VPN connection and use my credentials, my username and password. What happens is in that moment is that with my mobile phone, I'm going to receive a push request that will show if I want to, if that's me authenticating, and if I approve that. I know it's not me. I'm here talking to you, so it's not me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to deny the push authentication and block the attack. The good thing is that the hacker will just get an error message saying that the credentials are wrong. So they might even think that they have the wrong credentials and this password is not my password anymore. But the fact that it is, but I used MFA to block an attack. And at the same time, now I know that someone tried to use my credentials. It's time to change my password as well. Some of the common use cases, this is just some. You can use for everything that you see in here. There's no additional cost for that. You can use to protect your login to your computers. You can implement a web single sign-on. You can use for remote access with Firebox or any other firewall, not as good as the Firebox, but still we do support any other firewall that you see in the market for privileged user access and also to get compliance. So one of the first GDPR fees that was applied here in Europe, I'm based in Europe, one of the fees was applied to a hospital in the Netherlands. And the reason they got that is because they were not protecting the patient information with multi-factor authentication. And they had like 1 month to implement, otherwise they would have to pay, I don't know how many €1,000 per day until they implemented something like that. And you can also use to protect cloud applications. And I think this is one of the most interesting cases because if you look at that, I mean, depending on the company, you have so many cloud applications that you have to use. In our case, we use a lot. So for myself, I have to know the passwords. And here, if I start counting my passwords, I would have to count each one of those. So I have here six, seven. I have 13 cloud applications. I would have to have at least 13 cloud applications just for the company, plus my network password. This is a lot of credentials for me to remember. So with multi-factor authentication, together with web single sign-on, you can sign in once to a web portal, to a IDP portal, an identity provider portal with your network password plus auth point, and then you can single sign on to all of those applications. So for the user, it's 13 last passwords for them to remember. And for the admins, they don't have to reset passwords all the time. So they don't have to deal with password resets, which is a big pain for administrators all the time. So it's a big advantage. So let's see a little bit about how it works. But before that, I mean, after this presentation, if you want to go to our website, we have walkthroughs in our websites. There's a management portal demo that you can go and see how the management interface looks like. And you can take an authentication demo without configuring with your network. And you can also get a trial. You can get a 30 days trial with up to 250 users. And you can really implement it's the full features, everything you can try with those trials. So just go to our website. You can help ask our friends in here to get a trial license for you as well. But you can do that through our website. So let's take a look on how it looks like in terms of applications. So I'm going to do here a quick demo. Let me just start with the web single sign-on. Let me find again my page. Okay, so this here is my mobile phone. So I have the WatchGuard auth point. I have a lot of tokens here. Usually, most of the people would have one token that you can protect with a PIN or the biometrics. I use biometrics because usually I don't remember my PIN. So you can customize your tokens. You can put your preferred picture. You can put the preferred name. You can put in here anything you want. I have a lot of tokens in here. And with this app, you can also put your personal tokens. You can use it as a repository for your personal account. So I use for my Gmail account, my LinkedIn account. So if LinkedIn is hacked again, my account is protected with MFA. So that's really important. And I can use for other applications, for personal applications as well. But the ones managed by AuthPoint, I can protect here with PIN, biometrics. They change every 30 seconds. You can use in 3 ways. You can use with push-based authentication. You can type in the time-based one-time password, so it changes all the time, and that's for security. Or you can use a challenge response way to authenticate. And it's really easy to activate. You're going to use this QR code reader here, up here, in order to activate the token and authenticate as well for challenge response. So let's see how it works. Put in here. This is my web single sign-on portal. Everyone that has AuthPoint will have its own web single sign-on portal, which would be authpoint.watchguard.com/the name of the company. Okay, so you have your own URL. You don't have to install a server. You don't have to install web single sign-on server. Everything, it's ready for you. Okay. Sorry, I'm waving a little bit because I think that fly that was in the Mike Spence head is now in my room here. It's trying to go over my face. So to authenticate, you're gonna type in the email address or your username, and it's gonna check if I exist in this web single sign-on portal. I do exist. Now I'm gonna put my password. And this is the real thing. I'm authenticating as an employee to WatchGuard. Okay. And I'm gonna send a push authentication. I protected this token with biometric. So it's gonna show in here that I'm trying to authenticate. I'm in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm using a Chrome browser on a Windows machine, and I'm trying to access the AuthPoint access portal. And I'm gonna approve, that's me. I'm doing that, I'm gonna approve. And now I have access to all of those applications. And thank God I don't have to remember the password and credentials for all those applications. The only thing I have to do now is just to click on the application I want to access. So for example, Salesforce, it's going to single sign-on. There's a protocol that's used for that. It's called SAML, S-A-M-L. It creates a relationship, a trust relationship between the application and I'm not going to open here. Nobody wants to see what's in our pipeline. But in other applications like RAC that we use for marketing, it creates a trust relationship between the cloud application and AuthPoint as the identity provider. And this is why you can single sign on to all of those applications. Thank God I don't have to have those passwords. And I'm pretty sure that now that we have 1,200 employees in the company, I'm pretty sure that IT is really happy that they don't have to reset passwords for Salesforce and for any of those applications in here. Okay, so this is a web single sign-on. Another thing I wanted to show in here is I have it open here somewhere. It's how you can protect a Windows logon as well. So I have a VM machine. I'm not showing my computer, otherwise I would have to lock and you wouldn't see anything. But I have a Windows 10 here installed with a user, and it's protected with an agent that protects logins. And you can use that for Mac OS as well. So basically what you do, you put in here the password, and the user will put the password as they regularly do. Now it's going to check that you need to authenticate with AuthPoint. There are different ways to authenticate with push, QR code, or one-time password. There's even an option if you forgot the token, if you're using a hardware token, for example. But I have my token here. You can also configure, click in here if you want to automatically send a push notification when I log in, because I'm too lazy. I don't want to press this button all the time. But what happens is that then I receive a push message. Here it's authenticating Lisbon, Portugal. I'm trying to log in to this computer. This is the name of my computer. I'm lazy to change the name as well. It's a Windows 10 Pro, and then I can approve within my phone. And with that, I get access to the computer. So really easy for the user. It's not something that complicates the user's life. That's all they have to do. And for remote access is the same thing. Now, people might ask as well, what happens if I don't have internet access in my phone, if I don't have internet access in my computer as well? Maybe I'm on an airplane, I'm on a flight, not common these days, but it used to happen a lot before the pandemic. So if I don't have an internet access, I can use two ways to authenticate. I can use one-time password. Basically, I'll type in the one-time password that's showing in here, or the most secure option, which is using a QR code. QR code is encrypted for my phone, only my phone can see. So I'm gonna click in here on this QR code reader. It's gonna open my camera. I'm gonna put in front of the QR code. It's gonna decrypt and show the same information as if I was using push. But since I'm considering that I don't have internet connection, this is an offline authentication, I have to type in here the response to the challenge that's showing up in here, also based on time. So I'm going to put in here and I get access to the computer. So it doesn't matter if I have access to the internet or not, I still can log into the computer. Just the first I log in, I have to really use the internet. After that, it stores credentials in a encrypted way in the computer, so you can do offline login. And the final thing I wanted to show is just the example. I showed the example in my presentation, but just to see it working live. Let's pretend I'm a hacker. I'm using the VPN client here. I'm trying to connect to a VPN using stolen credentials. Let's pretend I know the hacker knows my credentials and is starting to connect to this VPN. What's going to happen? I'm going to receive this push message, and I'm not waiting for that. I received that out of the blue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to deny this access. And the attacker will receive a message, authentication failed. So for the attacker, they're going to think, well, I think I have the wrong password, so I can throw this away. I'm not using these credentials anymore. And for me, I know that, okay, someone tried to connect using my credentials. It's time to change my password and maybe tell the IT guy. I don't have to, but I could tell the IT guy. In any case, the off-point management will also show users that rejected push notifications, because this is a good indication that maybe the password was stolen. Okay, so this was just a quick demo of the product. So just to show that you can do the same, you can go through this demo as well if you want. So we saw web single sign-on to cloud applications, Windows login protection, and how you can block an attempt to a VPN connection using stolen credentials. And this is going to happen a lot now with everything that's going on. I mean, VPN connections, everyone is using that, and I cannot emphasize that much. All it takes is one stolen credential. I don't need all of them. I don't know if you heard about the Citrix attack that happened some time ago, also some months ago. They were able to get into Citrix network. And what they did, they used an attack that they used simple passwords, well-used passwords. And they used a technique called password spraying. And with that, they were able to get into some accounts and get inside the network. So all it takes is one stolen credential for the attack to happen. And just to finish my presentation, this is our portfolio. We can help in many aspects, the remote access. We have the secure Wi-Fi that is not just a regular Wi-Fi. It really adds layers of protection to your Wi-Fi. We now have the advanced endpoint protection with AD360, complete endpoint protection to protect the user's computers. Network security, our product that we have in the market and mature in the market for more than 20 years. And multi-factor authentication, which is my baby. Since my company was acquired, we have been providing multi-factor authentication through cloud. So you can install, test everything through the cloud. Okay, this is what I wanted to pass. If you have any questions, I think we still have 10 minutes. Let me know. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alex. That was